So, was it a year and a half ago?
A year and a half ago for the
Yeah,
SS Congress?
yeah. A year and a half ago at another event, Joe and I were sitting around.
2.5.
2.5 years ago, Joe and I were sitting around, and was it Rod?
Rod Dreisbeck.
Yeah, Rod Dreisbeck from Boeing, made a comment, and Joe and I said, well, we can create an event and to do that. What resulted in that was the extra S, the Analysis, Simulation, and Systems Engineering Software Summit, which was held at the Santa Fe Institute, courtesy of Chris Wood at Santa Fe, and we had a rather lively set of conversations. And it turned out that what we were doing in terms of focusing on these areas was something more than just a conversation. And it evolved into the Assess Initiative. We held an event for the Assess Initiative during Snowmageddon last January, or a year ago, January, never again. And
2-day event that lasted 5.
Yes. But what we are doing now is, because the Assess Initiative is born out of a subset of the COFES community, we are continuing to bring reports from the Assess Initiative to the COFES audience, and there will be a great deal of interaction going forward. Joe is the leader of the Assess Initiative, and I will support him in any way I can, including giving him this bully pulpit to provide a report from Assess.
Thank you very much, Brad. So my job is to actually give you a 2017 report from the Assess Initiative activities. The Assess, as Brad mentioned, it actually did start with a lunch conversation that Brad and I had after Rod Dreisbeck said, we really need to understand the changing role of simulation better, and we really needed to have a conference on this, and so we said, let's try to put this together. That led to getting some of the best minds in the simulation space together and saying we need more than a discussion. We need to actually create an initiative to move this forward, to change some things. So the Assess stands for Analysis, Simulation, and Systems Engineering Software Strategies. Please remember the strategies. You'll get in trouble if you leave off that last S. So that we use the term in Assess, so that we don't have to use so many words, we use the term engineering simulation to describe to those technologies in those fields, analysis, simulation, and systems engineering software technologies, as they are used in engineering applications. In order to do this, we are avoiding things like warfare simulations, we're avoiding things like game simulations and training simulations, and we're focusing on the things that are used for engineering decisions for processes and products. And the reason why we did that wasn't because we thought we were special. It was because by doing that, there was a common set of characteristics and issues. If we had kept it broader, the characteristics and issues were no longer common. So let's take a look at the technical drivers for engineering simulation. It all started out as failure analysis. Things are breaking. And we got smart and said, if they're breaking, can we do design validation so that they don't break? Can we move to design decision support? Can we move to design drivers? And then we blew up into systems engineering of saying, okay, let's design the whole system, not the components. Let's simulate the whole process, how everything works together. And the new buzzword and the new technology that's online is something called generative design, which has a lot of aspects of putting together the other things, but it's also about, instead of taking a design and see how it does, it's actually creating the design to meet a function. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But I'll automatically generate design alternatives to do that. But that's not the change. That's been happening. This transition's been happening for a while. Technology's been advancing. This is something the engineering simulation space is used to. We're a very dynamic, innovative company, and as Peter showed, there's still 470 software companies in this space that we found, and we know there's more we haven't found yet. So that it's a growing, mature industry, but still with 470 vendors. So what is changing? It's about the recognition that being able to understand the performance and the physics sooner means you can make better decisions that impact business. The fact that simulation means you can increase innovation, quality, reduce risk, reduce time, reduce cost. This chart is showing business value and applicability as the two axes. So the big change is business drivers are going, as more and more executives, as more and more firms become aware of how important simulation can be for the innovative position, the business drivers are going to demand much more simulation. Much, much more simulation. This is the change that's coming. It's the changing role is to enable being more competitive. And this was all caused by the 2008 collapse of the world economy. Because all of a sudden in 2009, everybody was in a more competitive position. And they needed to figure out how to be in a better position going forward. And lean manufacturing, although it's now a requirement, is no longer a competitive advantage. It is just part of being in the game. So now where's the next advantage? It has to be in increasing innovation, quality, reducing risk. It has to be in the things that are about better understanding the performance of your process and product, which means it's all enabled by simulation. So with that, we should be on a classic market S-curve. We've finally gotten out of the dark corner. Executives at people like Procter & Gamble, other organizations which normally aren't your automotive and aerospace big simulation users, they're recognizing the benefit. There's design optimization being done for paper plates. There's things of this going on to save that 1/1000% of weight because you make 10 billion of them. This sort of thing is happening, and it's starting to take off. So the question is engineering simulation at an inflection point to really break through? Well, we took a look at some data from Cambashi. And so we took a look at the data using the new CAE observatories that have been released. And we looked at the past. And what we're seeing is there's some ups and downs, but generally we're seeing a trend for quite some time now. There's a recovery from the 2008, 2009 timeframe, and then some dips back again. There's a little anomaly in 2015 where things slowed down a bit, but otherwise it's a general flat 8 or 9% growth. Up until 2008, this market grew 10 to 15% a year, and now it's growing 8 or 9% a year, which is still, and I think 8.6% was the projected number you had. So that this is still far and above better than anybody else, but this isn't the explosive S-curve we're looking at. This is a nice growth. It's healthy, but it's not the S-curve. So the technology drivers are enough innovation to keep this steady 8 to 10% growth, but they're really not catching the business demand. So why not? So if we map those things onto what the real growth is, which is the middle curve, in that the red curve, we're seeing some nice steady growth, but it's really not capturing the demand that we expect to be hitting us. Actually, those who are in this space very intensely know that demand is already hit, and there's not enough people to do the simulation that's requested. And that is indeed the problem, that engineering simulation is still done primarily by specialized experts. The level of expertise required to get answers that are good enough to make the decisions is so high that we don't have enough people to do the simulations we need done. So whenever I talk about this, I always try to put a frame of reference. In 3 to 5 years, don't think about that what we want to do is 10 times the simulation we do today. Think about what we're really trying to do is, with the business explosion, is 10,000 times the simulation we do today in 3 to 5 years. Pose that as how do we get there? We can't do that by making 3 clicks into 2 clicks. You have to change fundamentally the approach to things. So the business drivers are going to force a revolution to overcome this expertise limit. And engineering simulation will be forced to find a way. And there's already technologies happening, there's already things going on this vein in terms of model-based, fit-for-purpose, integrated, smart, transparent, or invisible simulations, generative, various different things. New things are going to come along, And so we're going to see a delay behind the demand while the technology has to adjust to a new audience. But it will come. So the Assess initiative was formed to bring together the key players to guide and influence the strategies, with the idea of saying we know this demand is there, we know we're struggling to meet it, so we can either wait for the wave to hit us or we can bring it forward. We can actually reduce that gap. And so it's actually bringing together vendors, customers, market analysts, everybody involved in the industry in a collaborative effort to say what do we need to do to change to actually make this happen more quickly and more effectively. So the Assess vision is to significantly expand the use and benefit of software tools for model-based analysis, simulation, and systems engineering in the engineering application domain. Assess doesn't do this alone. It's a broad-reaching multi-industry initiative, and we collaborate with NAFEM, SimData, and COSI, IEEE, Revolution and Simulation, and many, many more. It's a growing list of collaborations that we work with. So the key drivers behind the Assess initiative are, one, a growing demand on how to be more competitive. Two, at the same time that we want to do more with going forward, the complexity of what we're trying to do is exploding. So we're having an exponentially growing complexity. Three, there's an increasing availability of computing power so that computing is no longer seen as the bottleneck. But no hardware vendor should get quiet or get comfortable, because if you take a look at simulation as one of the highest demanding applications today, and then take that 10,000x number, guess what? We'll eat the computing as fast as you can build it. But it's no longer the main bottleneck. The new world of 3D printed objects and lightweighting is changing the kinds of things we can build and the kinds of things we can design and the kinds of analysis we need to do. There's entirely new applications creating a rapidly growing demand for simulation. There's inpatient treatments for biomedical things, for heart valves, for various different things where it's very patient-specific. One of the interesting presentations I saw was someone from the MDIC, the Medical Device Innovation Consortium. They're trying to come up with ways to use simulation to certify their tools without having to do all the physical testing. They gave numbers related to their cost. The amount that they're willing to spend on simulation, not what their cost is, but the amount they're willing to spend on simulation dwarfs the entire simulation market today. So there are new applications which can absolutely explode and change and enable breakthroughs in those areas. So the other driver is the simulation's used almost exclusively by a limited number of expert analysts. There's been some work to broaden that pool, but it's still too small a pool. And those in the aerospace and automotive industry will also indicate that pool's having issues about retirement. That pool is retiring faster than it's being replaced. So the other interesting driver is that there's three key efforts in simulation. And this is very strong in the US. It occurs everywhere in the world, but here we have these three disjointed things much stronger. Europe is a little closer tied together, but we have the commercial activities, the government activities, and the research activities. There's some correlation in EMEA. There's little to none in North America. And everybody's reinventing the same wheel. We can't afford that if we're going to try to make these leaps. Okay, so what's Assess doing about this? So we got the drivers, we got the background, what are we doing about it? Well, we had a summit that Brad mentioned in January of 2015, where we had 40 industry leaders, one keynote presentation from Richard Riff, 5 working groups, and we highlighted 8 key issues that needed to be addressed. And that was the focus of the summit. So what are the key issues? And the other focus of the summit is, okay, what should we do next? And there was a lot of discussion about that. That led to the Assess 2016 Congress at Snowmageddon, where we had 85 industry-leading participants. We had a keynote from Jesse Citizen from the United States Defense Department, Roger Burkhart from John Deere, Zach Ekblad from Intel, and Rod Dreisbeck, who gave a very inspiring goal of what we really want to be trying to do going forward. and how it's actually possibly referred to it actually at the time as the next first generation of engineering simulation, because he thinks it needs to change that much that we need to reclassify it as a first generation. We had 26 technology briefings, and we broke into 7 working groups on different topics, where people spent several hours working together to work through the issues and the organization of those topics, and then to present back to the group. These included democratization of engineering simulation confidence and governance, business challenges, aligning those disjointed vectors, potential game changers, looking forward, and the integration of systems and detailed subsystem simulations as being key working areas. The next activity we have coming up is the Assess Congress, November 1st to 3rd. We are going back to Potomac. We are going back to the same location. And Brad has promised me that there will be no snow. And if there is, we all get to take it out of Brad's hide. But there should not be any snow in November this year. We're targeting up to 150 people this year. We are going to cap it at 150 people for the attendance. We're only going to have 2 keynote presentations. We're going to have 8 to 10 technology briefings. And we're going to have 8 to 10 working groups focused on the assess themes, but we're going to have 2 sessions each. So every person can go to 2 different sessions and 2 different themes and contribute. This is a working Congress. It is not a conference of presentations. We work together and collaborate, and that's what Assess is about, is getting everybody involved to collaborate to move forward on these topics. And the new theme that we've added is the generative design theme. So we've also introduced and created the Assess Advisory Committee. We've got 57 industry thought leaders and 8 working groups, and 5 working groups have been working on the actionable items from the Assess 2016 Congress. We've also created an Assess Initiative website, which recently went live toward the end of 2016. And that includes things like the general overview of Assess, the Assess theme, the congresses, the different theme information, resources about presentations, experience, documents, links to various information about these topics, so it can become a very good source just about understanding what's going on in the industry and the direction of things. And we also, now we're going to talk to you about, I'm going to bring up some people to talk to you about the Assess Advisory Committee working group updates. We have tasked these particular themes, we've tasked the advisory committee to take these themes forward into actionable items and into things that can make a difference. So first we had to discuss where are we, what are we doing, what are we trying to do, what are the issues, and they're going to present some of those things. And then it's kind of what can we do to actually help the industry. So we're going to be bringing several people up to do some Assess theme updates. The democratization of engineering simulation will be John Chauner from Pointwise. He'll be coming up very soon. Then engineering simulation confidence and governance will be Keith Mencius from SimData. Then integration of systems and detailed subsystems simulation will be Hubertus Tumascheit from Modelon. And on the engineering simulation business challenges will be Chris Wilkes from Sigmetrics. And you can see there's a short version of every name of every working group or theme so that we don't have to talk the long things. I will talk about the alignment status, and Keith Mencius will do an introduction of the new Assess theme of generative design.